Blake Lively says she is hurt and humiliated by what Ryan Reynolds said in his John Candy tour, where he told a story about basically telling her to F off as they were entering the Met Gala because taking a business call meant more than supporting her. And I'm going to be honest, I don't blame her. I mean, in many ways, they definitely deserve each other. They've both done horrible things in their career. But also, I really don't believe anyone deserves to be treated the way that she seems to be getting treated. And the more you look at their back and forth, tit for tat, joking, quote unquote, joking with each other over the years, it starts to make you wonder if it was actually both sided or if it was from Ryan coming at Blake. And so we're going to dive into that today. We're also going to look at her shadow patterns through the lens of Gene Keys. We haven't talked about Gene Keys in a while on the channel, but today we are going to dive into that. So the articles we were seeing come out over the last 2 days is Ryan Reynolds hurled profanity at wife Blake Lively during desperate call with Bill Murray. Seems like Bill Murray wanted nothing to do with Ryan, was ignoring his calls, and Ryan got a call back from Bill Murray. It looks like they're going into the Met Gala, I would assume. We talked about a tuxedo event, so that would have been Blake Lively's thing, something she loved. And when she whispered to him, it's time to go in, it's our turn to go in, he looked at her and said, F you, and took the call instead. And let me tell you this. Number one, these articles that are coming out, I mean, not shocked. I would be humiliated too, to be quite honest. But number two, I don't think this was a planned PR take on this. I also don't think what we'll look at quickly is her post on Instagram. I also don't think that she was originally going to be posting that on Instagram, but it just makes me think more and more that their teams aren't connecting. Her post seems more of what you would see, and we've seen this. If an influencer says something negative about her, she hits back with a post like this. So I don't know. It seems more and more they're disconnected. It says here, it looks like the relationship of Hollywood's iconic couple, Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, is going through rough waters. If sources are to be believed, their marriage has become toxic and they fight most of the time. The couple got hitched in 2012 and are parents to 4 kids. And it says Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's marriage faces some tough times. According to sources, Hollywood's iconic couple is at each other's throats and fighting around the clock. I don't think anyone's surprised about that, to be honest. It's constant. They fight all the time, a source close to the couple revealed to Shutter Scoop. The insider further revealed that the F-bombs aren't playful anymore like before. They've turned nasty and it's wearing them both down. I mean, I haven't heard her talk to him like that. These claims come just days after Ryan Reynolds admitted to that he told his wife F you while attending the much-awaited call from director Bill Murray. As per Daily Mail, during an appearance in New Jersey, the Deadpool actor revealed that he left Murray 40 messages in an attempt to get a part in the documentary John Candy, I Like Me. Later, while stepping out with his wife for a formal event, his phone buzzes, and when he looks at the phone, it says Bill Murray. Around the same time, Lively whispered to him that they have to go in. That's when Ryan Reynolds responded, F you. While many laughed at the revelation, insiders claim it told a different story of their marriage. They used to tease each other for fun, but lately it feels cruel. I don't know. It always kind of felt cruel to me. I don't think Blake's necessarily in a healthy relationship, if I'm going to be honest. So a friend told Rob Shutter, due to the constant teasing, Blake feels humiliated and Ryan acts like she should just take it, which doesn't surprise me, adding that kind of energy isn't sustainable. The sources went on to say that their marriage has become toxic, which might harm the relationship in the long run. The fighting is constant, the swearing relentless, and neither one seems to willing to back down. I've never seen her speak to him like that, but I could be wrong. I know they've had that back and forth, but part of me wonders if the back and forth on their social media was always just Ryan going back and forth between their two accounts. And then there's some articles coming out about how that latest joke about Blake Lively isn't landing how he thinks. And that might be actually her team that's pushing that. That could be very well her team. I had thought maybe it might be just Baldoni's team, but it could definitely be her team as well. I'm standing by on, I think it was Friday or Thursday. I said, I don't think Blake is impressed. I don't think she's impressed by this at all. And I'm standing by that. And this PR campaign that's rolling out seems to agree that she's not overly impressed with this. But let's look at our Instagram account. So this is Blake's Instagram account. And 9 times out of 10, if she gets bad press, she ends up on Instagram posting something. And when I talk about bad press, I mean influencers calling her entitled and rude. something comes out that she doesn't really like. And it's not bad press necessarily in regards to the lawsuit that she goes to Instagram. It feels more like if it is a personal attack to her. She goes straight to Instagram. And so she went to Instagram, and it's funny because we had just said the other day that I didn't think any of this was going to be used for PR, that she didn't seem very happy. I think it was on Friday we talked about that. And here it is being used for PR. So it says, I worked in Orlando this week, and like any responsible adult, decided to stay and play. Any excuse to sneak my babies with me. Each park was more incredible than the last. But man, oh man, that epic park is something else. When you're in there, it feels like you're living inside the movies. So magical. Core memories for all of us. Thank you, Universal Orlando, for hosting us. We're so grateful to have had that experience of being so inspired and connected as a family in these magical worlds you've built. It really is unlike anything we've ever seen. And so you have all these pictures here that she posted. And she is very beautiful. So she posted all these pictures. Of course, she has to get pictures of outfits and shoes in. There you go. We know she needed control authorship over that, and the It Ends With Us movie was getting the shoes in. So we got lots of pictures of shoes. But yes, so she did that post, and then, so that was 10 hours ago. And then if we're looking over at the Blake Lively feels humiliated post, that's 8 hours ago. That tends to show me, and again, it's not a guarantee. I have experience in PR, but everyone's going to have their own strategy. But when we see something that shows up on an Instagram account and then a couple hours later, there's a certain story that's being run, to me, it does look like a coordinated effort. Typically, what you're going to see in terms of PR is they're going to drop something like this on, say, their Instagram account, these pictures, and then the person says, hey, this is what time it's dropping. You can drop the articles at this time. What we're seeing more and more is just the articles handed off. Like, they're already written. The journalist that's behind it doesn't have to do a whole heck of a lot, but it does feel coordinated to me when we have the Instagram post dropping 10 hours ago and the article starting to run that she was hurt, humiliated, things aren't that great with Ryan 8 hours ago. That seems coordinated to me. But what I want to look at is her gene key core wound next, because not just from understanding Blake a little bit more, but from a lens of this is what happens to you when you have unhealed wounds. And we all have them. And it's not that, I remember the first time I ever taught gene keys to people or worked with people on their gene keys. They pick up the book and they're like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, this is my core wound. Perfect. Read it. Done. I'm healed. I mean, that's the height of the ego. That is the height of the ego when you can open up something, read it for 3 minutes, and decide that you are healed. So it is a journey. It's not that we ever get rid of it. What you'll find as you go through the experience of something like gene keys and addressing your wounds is that it's like an onion and these layers get pulled back and you learn so much about yourself. But that core frequency of what the wound is tends to have a thread that follows you for life. It's just becoming more aware of it. So let's look at it for Blake Lively here. So the first thing that I noticed when we look at Blake Lively's profile overall is the shadow frequency across her chart. So the shadow frequency of her chart, when we look at the different spheres, I mean, we have dishonesty, superficiality, chaos, agitation, victimization, dishonesty, addiction comes up twice, dishonesty comes up twice, force in terms of purpose. And so we see an underlying shadow frequency for Blake Lively, which is really about this dishonest, superficial lens to life. And all of this comes together in a show of force to get the things she wants. Now, one of the things I would say right off the bat, she needs to be honest with herself with what she wants. Stop living so superficial, looking at the addictive patterns that she has, the dishonesty that she's been presenting to herself and both others, and breaking free of that victimization pattern to have true freedom. But let's look specifically at her core. Now, the core wound, her shadow is dullness. I'll read what it says here and we'll go a little bit deeper into it together. Dullness is an attitude of melancholy or emptiness that can lead to depression, violence, rage, or frustration. And that can be taken out on others. A reactive shadow of this, there's going to be a repressive and a reactive. The reactive shadow of this is taking it out on others, taking that frustration out on others, taking that rage out on others. Dullness is rooted in the fear of ordinariness and repetition, yet often results in living a sheltered life inside one's comfort zone. This fear of ordinariness is something that we've talked about frequently with Blake Lively, where I feel that a big piece of her shadow and how it's triggered is seeing people like Ryan or Taylor be very successful and her herself feeling very ordinary. So even before I looked at her Gene Keys profile, it was something that was very obvious in how she moved based on the things she said. It is the heavy feeling in the physical body when one is unable to access the vital spark of creativity, nor simply relax into the slower rhythms of life. Another way that we see this dullness, I find, an inability to relax in the slower rhythms of life show up for Blake Lively, is that she frequently will bounce between different projects or different businesses. You rarely see her follow through on anything. Even her production company was called B for Effort. And we see this as well in terms of Betty Booze, Betty Buzz, Betty Brown, I don't know, hair care lines, all these alcohol lines. Instead of scaling one and seeing one get successful and really getting behind it, she always has a lot going on. And some people that know human design might say, oh, that's just the manifesting generator. She's a manifesting generator. I disagree. That is not a manifesting generator. That's not somebody that's aligned. One of the biggest shadows of the manifesting generator is constantly bouncing between things, not seeing anything through, getting into things that are incorrect, and then burning out or losing interest in it, and so quitting. That's the biggest shadow of the manifesting generator. So we can see that shadow, for those that understand human design, showing up for her through the manifesting generator aspect and also through the core wound aspect. So I feel that she has this true fear of being ordinary, this true fear of slowing down. And the industry she's in and her husband seem to just feed into this wound more than help her heal it. Now, if we look at the nuances within the reactive nature, which is that extremist, it says these people do not accept the dullness either, but their nature is to escape through denial. And when we look at Blake overall in her chart, well, that denial is through dishonesty to self, through victimization, through superficiality. And again, I believe being in Hollywood is one, just feeding into the monster of this shadow pattern that Blake has, but two, isn't really setting her up, especially being around Ryan Reynolds, setting her up to heal any of this. It says they often hide behind a kind of vagueness, moving from one experience to another with no real sense of rhythm or purpose. And I think that's such a great explanation of Blake Lively. Being extremists, they can find themselves in all kinds of diverse situations and places, but again, with no real directed sense of passion. Again, we're seeing that show up over and over again in all of the projects she takes on but doesn't follow through with. These people are always on the move, never really able to commit to anything or anyone, running from their own shadows. Such people have a hidden rage within that prevents them from being with others for very long. Only when they see through their own patterns of reaction can they begin to accept what they're running from. And Ryan Reynolds, they've been together for quite some time. And so we're not going to see it in every single relationship, of course, especially if it's feeding into the shadow pattern itself, because it's just feeding into that. And I do believe there's an aspect of control that comes out with that relationship, which we're even seeing from the sources coming forward in these new articles that are coming out. It says here, one of the great challenges of modern humanity is to learn how to slow down. Now, another aspect of looking at the core wound in terms of Gene Keys is she has what's called a line 5. So it says here you have an extraordinary capacity to impact the world and those around you through the choices you make. So anyone that has a line 5 here. Now, one of the interesting aspects of this when we're looking at the line 5 is there's a huge pressure from others to be a certain way with the line 5. And there's a capacity with the line 5 for especially a core wound to give up your own truth to try and fit in, to give up your own truth to be accepted. So you compromise your own truth to be something you're not. And at the end of the day, you start to feel worse and worse about yourself over time, but you continue to compromise your own truth to fit in, to be accepted. I actually have a line 5 in my core wound as well. And this is a daily, lifelong struggle, especially with ADHD, of having to really remind myself, what is my truth? What do I want? Regardless of what others' expectations are of me, because others' expectations and projections are none of my business. What can happen within this as well is resentment can start to grow and it starts to fester and it leads to power struggles in relationships. And the shadow here, the shadow of the line 5 feeds off of power struggles. So it learns to manipulate others through guilt, often without even realizing it. And I think that's an aspect of what happened with Blake and Justin, even on the set, was manipulating Justin through guilt, using certain aspects against him, whether she realized she was doing that or not. With that line 5, it's possible she didn't even realize she was doing it. It's a subconscious pattern of the wound here. But you learn to manipulate others through that guilt, using guilt against them. And so I think that very clearly played out on the set of It Ends With Us. It's very clearly something that's played out in the past with her. She manipulates others to get what she wants. And she manipulates others through guilt. And even when we look at Gossip Girl, how she bragged about turning the cast against Penn Badgley, I do think this manipulation shadow pattern and this power struggle, because remember that shadow pattern of the 5th line here feeds off of power struggles, has been something that just the Hollywood machine and her husband have fed into. Now, again, when we're looking at, well, what do you do next with something like this? It's a lifelong journey of healing. It's a lifelong journey at looking at, how does this show up in my life? Where does it show up in my life? And how can I begin to consciously shift it? Because again, this core wound is going to be an unconscious pattern that we live out. And so step 1 is starting to bring light to that unconscious pattern, starting to recognize it and shift when you see that pattern happen. It becomes increasingly difficult if you are around people or in an industry that just feed into that shadow pattern, that just feed into that power struggle. That, again, the power struggle is, it's like feeding the monster within someone with this type of activation or this type of shadow. I've said from the beginning, one of the main things I would do with Blake Lively if I was ever to work with her is help her figure out who she is. Her branding is going to be an extension of that. Happiness is going to be an extension of that. Thriving, not manipulating others will be an extension of that. Not guilting others will be an extension of that. Everything's going to be an extension of figuring out who she is. Everything's going to be an extension of her deciding, this is who I am. I'm not compromising. I no longer have to try and be like my friends or Taylor Swift or my husband. This is who I am, and this is what I want for my life. She figures that out. A lot's going to flow as an extension of that. If she starts to look at, where am I compromising my truth to be someone I'm not, because I want someone to accept me, I want someone to like me, her life's going to change. But that's the thing is, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people over the years, first as a counselor and then in self-development, human design, gene keys, etc. And that has to be a willingness on the individual's part. I've worked with a lot of people. I bend myself inside out trying to help them. And the reality is they're not willing to do the work. So the potential is there for her. But the question is she willing to do the work? And the answer might just be no to that. So overall, looking at Blake Lively, it does not surprise me that we saw her leverage the trip to Disney as a PR opportunity. But it was surprising to me that it was actually to take a hit at her husband. And I've had some people say, well, do you think it's just like this is all PR between them? It's like tit for tat. I genuinely don't believe so, because Ryan Reynolds has been working really hard to have good PR, and there's negative headlines coming out as an extension of that. I don't think telling his wife to F off is a PR headline that he would have done just so people would feel bad for Blake. I genuinely do not think this is a strategy he's had to help Blake's PR out. I don't believe that at all, especially if her response is that she's hurt and humiliated by it. It just makes no sense to me. I think it makes a lot more sense that their PR is not working in conjunction anymore. They're not working together anymore. And it's like a true response of, I can't believe he said this. Blake has an opportunity. I would love to work with her on this, to be honest. I would love to work with her on her human design and her gene keys and help her with the shadow patterns. I really believe we all have a capacity to change, but these are real patterns that she needs to be willing to shift. And I don't think her husband's doing her any favors at all. All right, my friends, I will put a link if you're interested in booking a Gene Keys call. I will put a link in the show notes here. They are calls that I offer. I would love to serve you with that. But let me know what you think in the comments. And do you believe that she's genuinely hurt and humiliated by how Ryan's been treating her? I called this on Friday that she wasn't impressed. I said it on Friday she wasn't impressed. And her PR push is confirming what I said on Friday. So let me know what you think. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. What I found, nobody wants to hear.